The cafeteria goes dead silent the moment I grab Jaewon Baek's wrist and slam it into the table hard enough to crack the tray underneath it. 300 students. Every phone already recording. And somehow, in the middle of all of it, I'm smiling. 20 minutes ago, I was the quiet transfer kid nobody bothered to learn the name of. The American nobody. The easy target. Now the richest, most feared 17-year-old in this entire school is on his knees in front of me. And everyone in that room is about to find out exactly why that was the worst mistake he's ever made. But to understand how we got here, you need to go back to my very first day. Because 3 weeks ago, I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to disappear. My name is Ethan Cole. My mother was born in Seoul. My father is American, a guy who met her overseas and fell hard enough to move his entire life for her. I grew up in Los Angeles, half Korean, half American, and fully confused about where I actually belonged. Then 6 months ago, my mom died. Cancer. Fast. Too fast. And in her last weeks, she made my dad promise one thing, that I would finish high school in her hometown, at the same school she once walked the halls of as a teenager. So here I am, new country, new language I'm only half fluent in, new uniform that still smells like the plastic wrapping, walking into a school that, within the first 10 minutes, I can already tell runs on fear. I notice it in the way conversations stop when a certain group walks by. I notice it in the way teachers suddenly get very interested in their paperwork whenever that same group enters a room. And I notice it most in the eyes of a girl sitting alone near the back window, the only open seat in the entire classroom, like there's an invisible wall around her that nobody wants to cross. Her name, I'll learn later, is Mira Han, and the reason nobody sits near her is about to become very personal to me. I take the empty seat and try to make myself as small as possible, the way you do when you're the new kid and you haven't figured out the rules of the room yet. Back in LA, I had a system for surviving new environments. Watch first, talk later, never be the loudest thing in the room. It had worked fine for 17 years. I had no reason to think it would fail me here. The classroom smells like chalk dust and instant coffee. Outside the window, Seoul stretches out gray and endless. Nothing like the wide, sun-bleached streets I grew up on. My Korean is decent, good enough to follow most conversations, clumsy enough that I still stumble over formal speech levels my mom always meant to teach me and never got the chance to finish. Every time I open my mouth, I brace for the mistake before I even make it. The homeroom teacher, a nervous man named Mr. Choi who flinches every time the classroom door opens, points me toward the empty seat next to her. I don't think anything of it. I just want to survive first period without embarrassing myself. That's when the door slams open. A tall kid walks in like he owns the building, because as far as this school is concerned, he basically does. Perfect hair, tailored uniform that's definitely not standard issue, 2 guys flanking him like bodyguards. Every single student in the room straightens up without being told to. Mr. Choi actually bows his head slightly. That's Jaewon Baek, son of one of the biggest construction conglomerates in the country, and apparently, unofficial king of this school. He doesn't even look at me at first. He's too busy scanning the room for something else. His eyes land on Mira, and something ugly flickers across his face before he forces it into a smirk. "Still sitting alone, Han?" he says, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Guess some things never change." She doesn't answer. She just stares at her desk like she's trying to become part of it. Then his eyes finally slide over to me. "New kid," he says, walking closer, tilting his head like he's inspecting livestock. "American, right? You smell like one." The class laughs. Not because it's funny, because they're scared not to. I don't say anything. I've dealt with guys like this before, back home. The trick is you don't react. You don't give them the thing they're fishing for. But Jaewon isn't done. He picks up my backpack off the floor, unzips it, and dumps the entire contents onto the tile in front of the whole class. Notebooks, pencils, a small photo of my mom that I keep tucked in the front pocket flutters out and lands face up on the ground. He picks it up, looks at it, smirks. "Is this your mom?" "She's pretty, I don't let him finish that sentence. I'm across the room before I even decide to move, and I grab the photo out of his hand so fast he doesn't have time to react. For 1 second, just 1 second, something dangerous flashes behind my eyes, and I watch his smirk falter. Then I catch myself. I step back. I put the photo away without a word, because I made a promise to myself before I left LA. No fights, no trouble. My mom's last wish was for me to actually finish school here in peace. and I already broke enough promises to her by not being there in her final hour because I was stuck in traffic. I wasn't about to break this one on day one. Jaewon studies me for a long moment, confused that I didn't swing. Then he laughs it off, tells his crew I'm not worth it, and walks away like he won something. He has no idea what he just started. Because here's the thing, nobody at this school knows about me yet. Back in LA, after years of being the kid who didn't fit in anywhere, my uncle, my mom's younger brother, who moved to the States before I was born, started training me. Not for sport, not for some anime dream, for real. He said it was because our family had a history of attracting the wrong kind of attention, and he wanted me able to handle myself. 3 years of it, quietly, consistently. Nobody at school back home even knew, because I never once used it. I figured that part of my life was over the second I landed in Korea. I figured I'd just keep my head down, get through senior year, and honor my mom's memory in peace. I was wrong. And it wasn't going to take long to find that out. Word travels fast in a school like this, and by lunch, everyone already knows the new American kid got humiliated in front of the whole class and didn't even fight back. To them, that reads as weak. To Jaewon's crew, that reads as opportunity. I'm sitting alone at the end of a table when Mirahan sits down across from me without asking. First person all day who's spoken to me without being cruel about it. You shouldn't have looked at him like that, she says quietly, not even making eye contact. Like what? Like you weren't scared. She finally looks up. People who aren't scared of Jaewon Baek don't stay unscared for long. I ask her why nobody sits with her. She goes quiet for a second, then tells me the short version. 2 years ago, Jaewon decided he liked her. She turned him down. Publicly. In front of his friends. And ever since, he's made it his personal mission to make sure nobody in this school ever gets close to her again, socially or otherwise. Rumors. Isolation. A misplaced phone that mysteriously ended up with private messages leaked to the entire grade. Small, constant cruelty, dressed up as jokes. That's when I understand exactly what kind of person I'm dealing with. This isn't a bully who throws punches. This is someone who destroys people slowly, socially, and makes sure the adults around him are too afraid or too paid off to stop it. I ask her why she doesn't just report it. She actually laughs, a short, hollow sound with no humor in it at all. Report it to who? She says. The teachers who bow to his father at parent events? The principal whose kid got into a top university because of a donation, the same month he stopped answering my mom's calls? You'll understand soon enough. Everyone here already understands. I don't have a good answer for that. Back home, the worst thing a bully could do was make your life miserable for a semester until graduation set you free. Here, it sounds like the whole system is built to protect the people doing the damage. I look at her more carefully then, really look, and I notice the way she keeps her sleeves pulled down over her wrists even though the classroom is warm. The way her eyes flick toward the door every few minutes like she's cataloging every possible exit. That's not paranoia. That's practice, and that should have been my warning to stay as far away from this as possible. It wasn't. Over the next few days, I watch it happen in real time. Small things at first. My shoes disappearing from the hallway locker, showing up later thrown on the roof. My notebook accidentally soaked through in the sink. Whispered jokes about my English accent whenever I try to speak Korean. Loud enough for me to hear, quiet enough to deny later. Typical stuff. Annoying, but nothing I can't absorb. Then it escalates into something else. During PE, Danny O, one of Jaewon's 2 lieutenants, built like a linebacker and twice as loud, accidentally slams a volleyball into the back of my head so hard I see static. The whole gym laughs. The teacher, conveniently, is looking the other direction. I get up. I don't say anything. I just walk it off. Internally, I'm keeping count. The other lieutenant, Kevin Ryu, is the quiet, dangerous type. The one who doesn't laugh at the jokes, just watches, calculating. He's the one I actually worry about, because he's the only one in that group who seems to actually notice the way I move, the way I balance, the way I never quite react the way a normal scared kid would. He's the first one who suspects I'm not what I look like. I catch him watching me one afternoon during cleanup duty, when I bend down to pick up a fallen chair with the wrong kind of control. The kind that comes from years of learning how your own body moves under pressure. His eyes narrow just slightly. He doesn't say anything. He just files it away. Great, I remember thinking. Just great. Of the 3 of them, the one who actually notices things is the one I can't afford to have noticing me. That night, I lie awake staring at the ceiling of my new apartment, the one my dad and I moved into 3 weeks ago, that still has unpacked boxes stacked against the wall like cardboard furniture. I think about calling my uncle, telling him what's happening, asking if this counts as the kind of situation he trained me for. Then I think about my mom's voice, the calm, steady way she used to talk me down whenever I got worked up over something at my old school. Pick your battles, Ethan. Not every fight is worth winning. I decide to give it one more week before I let myself think about anything else. I should have trusted my gut instead. By the end of the first week, Jaewon has fully decided I'm his new favorite target, mostly because I refuse to break the way he wants me to. He starts a rumor that I got kicked out of my last school in America for cheating. Not true, but it spreads fast, because nobody's going to fact-check the transfer kid with no friends yet. Teachers start looking at me differently. Even Mr. Choi, who seemed decent at first, starts keeping a wary distance, like he doesn't want to be caught defending me. Mira is the only one who doesn't buy it. She starts eating lunch with me regularly. Quiet company more than conversation. And honestly, it's the first thing in weeks that's made this transfer feel survivable. Jaewon notices that too, and he hates it. "You're spending a lot of time with my reject," he says one afternoon, cornering me by the lockers with Danny and Kevin flanking him. "Careful. People who get close to her end up regretting it. Is that a threat?" "It's a warning," he says, stepping closer. Close enough that I can smell his expensive cologne. "You're new here. You don't know how this works yet. I own this school. Teachers, parents, half the board, they all owe my family something. So whatever you think you're doing, whatever little rebellion you've got going on in that head of yours, it ends now." I look him dead in the eyes and say the 4 words that are going to change everything. "Make me stop then." The hallway goes quiet. Even Danny, who's usually itching for a reason to throw a punch, hesitates, because nobody talks to Jaewon Baek like that. Not anymore. Not since the last kid who tried transferred schools within a month. Jaewon's jaw tightens. For a second I actually think he's going to swing at me right there in the hallway. Then that same practice smirk slides back onto his face, and he backs off, laughing it off for the crowd that's gathered. "Cute," he says. "We'll see how cute you are next week." I should have taken that seriously. I didn't realize just how literally he meant it. The following Monday, I walk into class to find my desk flipped over and, taped to the whiteboard, a printed photo of my mother's obituary that someone dug up online, with a cruel caption scrawled underneath it in permanent marker. The room goes dead silent as I read it. Something inside me goes very, very quiet. Not loud, not explosive, quiet. The kind of quiet my uncle used to warn me about back in LA. The calm before I stop holding back. I don't yell, I don't cry. I walk to the board, peel the photo off carefully, fold it, and put it in my pocket without a word. Then I sit down at my desk like nothing happened. Mira looks at me, worried, because she can tell something shifted. She just doesn't know what yet. She catches up to me after class, walking fast to match my pace, and asks if I'm okay, in a voice that's careful, like she's approaching something that might go off. I tell her I'm fine. She doesn't believe me, and honestly, I don't blame her. "You don't have to pretend with me," she says. "I know what it looks like when someone's about to do something stupid. I'm not going to do anything stupid. That's exactly what someone about to do something stupid would say." Despite everything, I almost laugh. It's the first time in 3 weeks anyone in this country has made me feel like an actual person instead of a problem to be managed or a target to be picked apart. I tell her I appreciate her checking on me, and I mean it more than she probably realizes. She studies my face for a second longer, like she's deciding whether to trust the answer, then nods and lets it go, though I can tell she's still watching me differently for the rest of the day. What I don't tell her is that the folded photo in my pocket feels heavier with every hour that passes. What I don't tell her is that somewhere underneath the calm I'm performing, something has already been decided. At lunch, Jaewon comes to gloat, expecting me broken. Instead, I ask him one simple question. "Did you do that yourself? Or did you have someone else do your dirty work, like always?" His smile flickers. "Careful," he says. "No," I say, standing up slowly, calm in a way that clearly unsettles him. "You should be careful, because you just made this personal." For the first time since I got here, I watch real uncertainty cross Jaewon Baek's face. Just for a second. Then he laughs it off in front of his crew, calls me pathetic, and walks away. He thinks he won that exchange. He has no idea he just lit the fuse. That night, I call my uncle back in LA for the first time since I landed here. I don't tell him everything, but I tell him enough. He listens quietly, then says something I won't forget. You've spent 3 years learning how to protect yourself, Ethan. The moment you actually need it and don't use it, that training becomes useless. Don't pick the fight. But if it finds you, don't you dare hold back for their comfort. I hang up feeling something settle into place. Not anger exactly. Clarity. The days after that are quieter, almost suspiciously so. Jaewon backs off, at least publicly, and for a moment I actually let myself believe it's over. Mira warns me not to relax. She's seen this pattern before. Jaewon doesn't stop. He regroups. She's right. 10 days later, everything breaks wide open. It's during the lunch period, the cafeteria packed, when Kevin Ryu, the quiet one, the dangerous one, corners Mira alone near the vending machines, while Jaewon and Danny, coincidentally, show up right after. I catch the tail end of it from across the room. Kevin holding her wrist, Jaewon saying something low and cruel that makes her go pale. Danny blocking the exit like this was planned. And that's when the real problem started. I don't remember crossing the cafeteria. 1 second I'm at my table, the next I'm standing between Mira and Kevin's grip, pulling her hand free. Let her go! Jaewon actually laughs, delighted, like this is exactly what he wanted. Oh, look who finally grew a spine. Last warning, I say. Or what? Danny steps up behind me, cracking his knuckles, clearly hoping for an excuse. You gonna hit me, foreign boy? I don't answer him with words. Danny swings first, wide, sloppy, the punch of someone who's never actually had to fight, only intimidate. I see it coming from a mile away. I sidestep, catch his wrist mid-swing, and use his own momentum to put him face first into the vending machine, hard enough to crack the glass. The entire cafeteria goes silent. Kevin, the smart one, doesn't rush in blind like Danny did. He watches me for a second, recalculating everything he thought he knew, and for the first time I see actual fear behind his calculating eyes. Smart. He backs off. That leaves Jaewon. He's frozen, staring at Danny groaning on the floor, staring at me like he's seeing me for the first time, because he is. Every version of me he's built in his head, the quiet transfer kid, the easy target, the coward who didn't swing on day one, just shattered in front of 300 witnesses. You, he starts. I grab his wrist before he can finish, twist it just enough to drop him to one knee without breaking anything, and slam it flat onto the nearest table hard enough to crack the tray beneath it. This is the exact moment we started with. Now you know how we got here. You don't get to threaten her again, I say. Quiet enough that only he can hear it. Calm enough that it scares him more than yelling ever could. You don't get to touch her. You don't get to touch anyone in this school like you own them. That's over. Every phone in the cafeteria is up, recording. Teachers are finally rushing in, way too late to matter, and Jaewon Baek, the untouchable king of this school, is on his knees in front of everyone, humiliated by the kid he decided was worthless 3 weeks ago. He should have known better. He didn't. I let go of his wrist and step back. He scrambles up, face red, humiliation and rage fighting for control of his expression. For a second, I think he's actually going to try something stupid in front of everyone. Instead, he does something worse. He smiles. You think this is over? He says, low enough that only I can hear, wiping a thin line of blood from his lip. You have no idea whose son you just embarrassed. My father doesn't lose. Not to teachers, not to the school board, and definitely not to some American nobody with no family, no money, and no idea what he just walked into. Try me, I say. For a second, neither of us moves. The cafeteria around us is chaos. Students shouting, phones raised, somebody's tray clattering to the floor unnoticed. But right there between us, it feels like the whole room has gone quiet again. Like it's just the two of us, and everything we just found out about each other. He's staring at me like he's trying to solve a puzzle he didn't know existed an hour ago. I'm staring back, waiting to see if he's going to be stupid enough to swing. He isn't. Not yet. The teachers finally pull us apart, dragging both of us toward the principal's office, while the entire cafeteria buzzes with the footage that's already being uploaded, already spreading, already turning into something neither of us can control. The walk to the principal's office feels endless, the hallway lined with staring faces, students pressed against classroom windows, teachers pretending not to look while absolutely looking. Jaewon walks a few feet ahead of me, shoulders stiff, jaw tight, still wiping at the blood on his lip like he can't quite believe it's there. Neither of us says a word the whole way. There's nothing left to say that 100 phones haven't already recorded. In the principal's office, it becomes painfully clear exactly how deep this goes. The principal, a tired-looking man who won't meet my eyes for more than a second, spends more time apologizing to Jaewon than addressing what actually happened. There's talk of context and de-escalation and, disturbingly, talk of possibly transferring me instead of disciplining him. That's when Mr. Choi, of all people, finally speaks up. Quietly, nervously, but he speaks. He tells the principal there's video evidence, dozens of witnesses, and that covering for the Baek family this time isn't going to be as easy as it's been before. The principal goes pale. He clearly wasn't expecting anyone to grow a backbone today. I get sent home with a warning. Jaewon gets sent home with what's technically a suspension, though everyone in that room knows it won't stick for long, not with his family's money involved. Walking out of that office, I catch him staring at me from across the hallway, and for the first time, there's something other than arrogance in his eyes. Calculation, fear, and underneath both, something that looks a lot like obsession, like he's already planning the next move. That night, my dad calls, worried, having already heard through the grapevine of Korean parent group chats that his son was involved in an incident. I tell him the truth, all of it. He goes quiet for a long moment, and then says something I wasn't expecting. Your mom used to tell me about a boy at her school who thought he owned the place. She never told me how that story ended. Guess I know who's going to finish it now. I don't fully understand what he means until 3 days later, when my uncle calls me completely out of the blue, voice tight with something I've never heard from him before. Urgency. Ethan, he says, I need you to tell me the full name of the family that's been giving you trouble. Baek, I say. Why? There's a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. Because if it's who I think it is, my uncle finally says, you just picked a fight with the one family your grandfather spent his entire life trying to protect your mother from ever having anything to do with. And if his son finds out who your family actually is, this isn't going to stay a school problem much longer. My stomach drops. I sit down on the edge of my bed, phone pressed hard against my ear, my mind racing back through every strange, unexplained thing I brushed off over the years without asking too many questions. The way my mom would sometimes go quiet for entire evenings around the anniversary of some date she never explained. The way my uncle always paid in cash when we visited certain parts of Koreatown back home, like he didn't want a paper trail. The way nobody on her side of the family ever showed up in photos past a certain year, like an entire branch had simply been cut off and never spoken of again. What are you talking about? What grandfather? I don't even... I'll explain everything when I see you, he says. I'm booking a flight. I hang up the phone standing completely still in my room, replaying every single thing that's happened over the last 3 weeks, suddenly seeing all of it through a completely different lens. The whispered comments from older relatives at my mom's funeral that I brushed off as grief talk. The way my uncle always changed the subject whenever I asked about my mom's side of the family in Korea. The fact that she left specific, deliberate instructions for me to attend this exact school, in this exact city, and never once explained why. None of this was random. And somewhere across town, in a penthouse office that overlooks half the city his family built, Jaewon Baek's father is staring at security footage of a cafeteria fight, asking his assistant one very specific question. Cole, he repeats slowly, reading the name off a printout. Find out everything about this boy's mother. Everything. And do it quietly. Because he just recognized a face in an old photo that he thought he'd buried a long time ago. He thought that name was gone for good. He was wrong. And somewhere between a cracked vending machine, a folded photograph, and a phone call I never expected to get, my quiet, keep your head down senior year officially stopped existing. Whatever my mother buried when she left this country, whatever my grandfather walked away from decades before I was even born, all of it was walking straight toward me now, whether I was ready for it or not. I didn't come here looking for a war. I came here to keep a promise to my mother. But if Baek Sung-min wanted to find out exactly what kind of family he'd been messing with, I was starting to think I was more than willing to show him. Ethan's uncle steps into our apartment, drops his suitcase without unpacking a single thing, and says 4 words that make the room tilt sideways. Your grandfather was a ghost, not metaphorically, not some grief-soaked poetic nonsense people say at funerals. He means it like a title, like a name people used to whisper when they didn't want to be overheard. I'm standing in the kitchen holding a glass of water I never drink. My dad is frozen by the door, keys still in his hand, like he already knows this conversation is going to rearrange everything he thought he understood about the woman he married. And my uncle, jet-lagged, unshaven, still wearing the same jacket he probably put on 20 hours ago in LA, just stands there in our half-unpacked living room like a man about to defuse a bomb he helped build. "Sit down," he says. "Both of you. This is going to take a while. 3 days ago, I was just a kid who got suspended for cracking a vending machine with a bully's face. Now my own uncle is flying across an ocean because I said one surname out loud on the phone. And suddenly my entire life feels like it's been standing on a foundation nobody bothered to tell me about. That should have been my first clue how far this went. It wasn't even close to the last. My name is Ethan Cole, and 3 weeks into my senior year in Seoul, I found out my mother didn't just leave this country to marry an American. She ran from something. And whatever that something was, it just found me anyway. Let me back up, because this doesn't make sense without the fight. 2 days after I put Jaewon Baek on his knees in front of half the school, the video is everywhere. Not just the school group chats, actual news comment sections. Somebody stitched together 3 different angles and slapped dramatic subtitles over it, and now strangers on the internet are arguing about whether the quiet American transfer kid was justified in breaking a vending machine with another student's face. My face is blurred in most versions. It doesn't matter. Everyone at school already knows exactly who I am. My suspension technically ends in 4 days. Jaewon's, according to 3 different rumors, is already being quietly walked back by someone with money and patience. I don't know that for certain yet. I will soon enough. What I do know is that my uncle called again the morning after that first phone call, voice still tight, and told me not to say Baek Sung-min's name to anyone else until he landed. Not teachers. Not Mira. Nobody. "Why?" I asked. "Because some names attract attention the second they're spoken," he said. "And I don't want that kind of attention finding you before I get there to explain it properly. That's not the kind of thing you hear and then just go back to eating breakfast like normal." I spent the next 2 days replaying every strange, unexplained gap in my mother's history. The photographs that stopped existing after a certain year. The way she flinched, just barely, whenever the news mentioned major construction projects downtown. The specific, deliberate instructions she left for me to attend this exact school, in this exact city, like she was pointing at something on a map she never let me see. None of it made sense until my uncle walked through our front door with 2 days' worth of stubble and a folder tucked under his arm like it weighed more than his suitcase. Now here we are. He sits across from us at the kitchen table, sets the folder down, and doesn't open it right away. He just looks at it for a second, like he's deciding whether he actually has the right to hand us what's inside. "Your grandfather's name," he finally says, looking at me, "was Han Dae-sung. I already knew that much. My mom mentioned him maybe twice in my entire life, always briefly, always followed by a subject change so smooth I never thought to push back on it. What I never told you," my uncle continues, "is what he actually did for a living." My dad leans forward slightly. Even he doesn't know this part. 20-some years married to my mother, and this is apparently new information for him too. He wasn't a businessman, not exactly. He was a fixer, the kind people go to when something needs to disappear or something needs to happen quietly, without paperwork, without questions. Debts, leverage, information nobody was supposed to have. If 2 conglomerates were fighting over land rights, or a politician needed something buried before an election, or a company needed a competitor's secrets without anyone tracing it back, your grandfather was the man who made it happen. And he was very, very good at it. That sounds illegal, my dad says carefully. Some of it was, most of it lived in the gray areas rich and powerful people are very good at creating for themselves. My uncle almost smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. People in certain circles didn't call him by his real name. They called him the ghost of Itaewon. Because he could move through the highest levels of this city's business world, and nobody outside a very small circle ever knew his face. He held leverage over half the conglomerates in Seoul at one point. Real leverage. The kind that makes powerful men very polite when your family name comes up. I sit with that for a second. My grandfather, the ghost of Itaewon. It sounds like something out of a drama, not something that's supposed to be sitting 3 branches up my actual family tree. So he was basically a criminal, I say. He was a survivor first, my uncle says, sharper than I expect. This country, back then, especially in certain industries, you didn't survive playing fair. He built power the only way available to someone who started with nothing. Whether that makes him a good man or not, I'll let you decide once you hear the rest. He finally opens the folder. Inside are photographs, old enough that the colors have gone slightly yellow at the edges. A younger version of a man I've genuinely never seen before. Sharp-jawed, calm-eyed, standing in rooms that clearly belong to people with real money. In one photo, he's shaking hands with someone in an expensive suit outside what looks like a construction site, both of them smiling for a camera like the moment mattered. My uncle taps that specific photo. This, he says, is where it gets complicated for you specifically. He slides the photo closer. The man shaking my grandfather's hand is younger than I've ever seen him, but I recognize the eyes immediately. Cold, calculating. The exact same eyes I watched staring at me across a hallway 3 days ago. That's Jaewon's father, I say, and it isn't a question. Baek Sung-min, my uncle confirms. 26 years old in that photo. Ambitious, hungry, and completely broke, trying to get a construction project off the ground that every bank in the city had already turned down. Your grandfather brokered the deal that saved his entire career. Found him the investors nobody else could reach. Smoothed over permits that should have taken years. Basically built the foundation, the literal foundation, of everything the Baek family owns today. My stomach starts doing something uncomfortable. So Jaewon's whole empire, I say slowly, exists because my grandfather helped build it. Exists because your grandfather saved it, my uncle corrects. There's a difference, and it matters because of what happened next. He pulls out another photo. This one's grainier, taken from a distance, like whoever shot it didn't want to be noticed. Two men arguing outside a building at night, even blurry, even years old. I can tell one of them is furious in a way that looks barely contained. Once the deal was done, once Baek Sung-min had everything he needed, he didn't just walk away from your grandfather. He turned on him. Fed information to the wrong people, people your grandfather had spent his career staying invisible from. Made sure certain deals your grandfather still had in motion collapsed publicly, humiliatingly, in ways designed to destroy his reputation among the very circles that gave him his power in the first place. Why would he do that? Because a man like your grandfather knowing your entire origin story is a liability once you're powerful enough to pretend you built it all yourself, my uncle says flatly. Baek Sung-min didn't just betray a business partner, he erased the person who made him. And once your grandfather's leverage started collapsing, the very people he used to control leverage over turned around and came for him instead. The room goes very quiet. Your grandfather disappeared not long after that, my uncle continues, quieter now. Nobody knew if he was dead, in hiding, or just gone. Your mother was 17. She watched her father go from one of the most feared men in this city's underground business world to a ghost in every sense of the word, practically overnight, and she watched Baek Sung-min rise on the ashes of it, untouchable, rewriting his own history like your grandfather never existed. I think about my mom, 17 years old, watching her entire world collapse because one man decided loyalty was optional the second it became inconvenient. That's why she left the country, I say. That's why she left the country, my uncle confirms. She didn't want any of this touching her future family. She wanted you to grow up somewhere the Baek name meant nothing, somewhere it couldn't reach you. He looks at me directly now, and something in his expression cracks slightly. She specifically chose this school for you, Ethan. This exact school. I didn't understand why until you told me the name 3 days ago. Why would she send me here if she wanted me away from all this? My uncle hesitates for the first time since he started talking. Because it's the only school in this city with a direct connection back to your grandfather's old world, he says. I think, somewhere deep down, some part of her wanted the door left open. In case you ever needed to find your way back to where you actually came from. That lands heavier than anything else he's said tonight. I sit there processing the sheer size of what I just learned. 20 minutes ago, I was the new kid who got suspended for a fight. Now I'm apparently the grandson of a legendary underground fixer whose entire empire got stolen and buried by the father of the exact bully who's been making my life miserable for 3 weeks. None of this is a coincidence. It never was. Then something else clicks into place, and it makes my chest go tight. Jaewon, I say slowly. The way he acts, the way he treats everyone like they exist to serve him, that's not just rich kid entitlement, is it? My uncle shakes his head slowly. That's a kid raised his entire life by a man who believes loyalty is a weakness and betrayal is just smart business. Jaewon didn't invent cruelty on his own, Ethan. He was built by it. I don't know what to do with that information yet. Part of me wants to hate Jaewon even more, knowing exactly where all that ugliness comes from. Another part of me, quieter, more uncomfortable, starts to wonder if the kid I've been fighting is just another casualty of the same man who destroyed my grandfather. I file that thought away. I'm not ready to feel sorry for Jaewon Baek. Not yet. Maybe not ever. My dad, who's been silent through most of this, finally speaks. Does Baek Sung-min know? He asks. Does he know Ethan is Han Dae-sung's grandson? My uncle's face goes serious in a way I haven't seen since I got off the phone with him 3 days ago. I don't know for certain, he says, but based on how fast he's already moving to protect his son's reputation, and how specifically Ethan's family history is suddenly worth investigating, I think we have to assume the worst. I think he already suspects. Great. Just great. The rest of the night moves slower, my uncle filling in smaller details, my dad asking careful questions like he's trying to understand a woman he thought he already fully knew. I mostly stay quiet, turning the photographs over in my hands, staring at a grandfather I never met and a version of Baek Sung-min, young enough to still look almost human. By the time my uncle finally goes to bed on the couch, jet lag winning the war against adrenaline, I'm sitting alone at the kitchen table with the folder still open in front of me. Somewhere out there, decades ago, my grandfather built an empire out of nothing and then watched someone he trusted burn it to the ground. And somehow, without meaning to, without even knowing any of this a week ago, I ended up standing directly in the middle of the wreckage he left behind. I don't sleep much that night. When I finally do, I dream about a hallway full of expensive suits and quiet, calculated smiles, and somewhere at the end of it, a man with my grandfather's eyes watching me get closer. The next morning, my suspension still has 2 days left on it, which means I'm stuck at home while the rest of the school keeps talking about the fight without me. My uncle spends most of the day on his laptop, making calls in a low voice I'm clearly not supposed to overhear, occasionally disappearing onto the balcony when the conversation gets tense enough that he doesn't want witnesses. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone buzzes with a text I wasn't expecting. Mira, can you meet outside your building? Need to actually thank you properly. Also need to tell you something. I tell my uncle I'm stepping out for a few minutes. He gives me a look that says he wants to argue, then apparently decides against it, probably because he can tell I'm not in the mood to be told no about anything else today. Mira's waiting on the sidewalk when I get downstairs, hands shoved in her jacket pockets, looking more nervous than I've ever seen her. Which is saying something, considering the version of her I first met wouldn't even make eye contact with strangers. Hey, I say. Hey. She shifts her weight. So, I never actually said thank you, properly, for the cafeteria. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, she cuts in, gentler than the words sound. I want to. Nobody's ever done something like that for me before. Not once. Not in 2 years of this. She exhales slowly, like she's been holding on to that sentence for days. So, thank you, for real. I don't really know what to say to that, so I just nod, and for a second neither of us says anything else, the silence somehow less awkward than it should be. How are you doing? She finally asks. With everything, the suspension, the video being everywhere. Honestly, it's not even the biggest thing happening in my life right now, I say, which is technically true and also completely insane to say out loud. She raises an eyebrow. Bigger than becoming internet famous for cracking a vending machine with Jaewon's lieutenant's face? You have no idea! She studies me for a second, clearly deciding whether to push. She doesn't, which I appreciate more than she probably realizes. There's something else I wanted to tell you, she says instead, voice dropping lower, glancing briefly down the street like she's checking who's around. It's about school. The last 2 days, since the fight, I've noticed something weird. Weird how? There's been men near the school gates, not students, not parents either, not the kind of parents that usually show up, just standing there, watching. 2 different guys, different days, but the same kind of look. Like they're clocking who comes and goes. She shifts uncomfortably. I almost didn't say anything because it sounded paranoid even in my own head. But after today, with everything that happened, what happened today? One of them was outside again during last period. I watched him from the classroom window. He wasn't looking at the building, he was looking at your locker's side of the courtyard specifically. She meets my eyes. Ethan, I think someone's watching for you. That should not surprise me as much as it does, considering the conversation I just had with my uncle less than 24 hours ago. But hearing it confirmed by someone completely outside all of that, someone who has no idea what I learned last night, makes it feel real in a way the photographs didn't. Did you get a good look at either of them? I ask. Not close enough. Dark jackets, both of them. Professional looking, if that makes sense. Not like security guards. More like, she hesitates, searching for the right word. More like the kind of people who show up in movies right before something bad happens. I don't tell her what I already suspect. That whoever these men are, they're probably not random. That somewhere across this city, a construction magnate with my grandfather's old enemies might already be putting pieces together about exactly who I am. Thanks for telling me, I say instead. Seriously. Just be careful, she says. Whatever this is, I don't fully know what's going on with you, but I know enough to recognize when something feels bigger than a school rivalry. She's sharper than she lets on. That's becoming very clear very fast. We talk for a few more minutes, lighter stuff this time, school gossip about the fallout from the fight, some story about a teacher who apparently fainted watching the video for the first time. It's the first genuinely normal conversation I've had in days, and for a few minutes I actually let myself enjoy it. Let myself forget about ghosts and betrayals and men in dark jackets watching school gates. Then she has to go, her mom texting about dinner, and I watch her walk off down the street until she turns the corner and disappears from view. Something about watching her leave alone makes my chest tighten slightly, considering what she just told me. I make a mental note to walk her home from now on, whether she asks me to or not. I head back upstairs, mind still half on the conversation, half on everything my uncle told me the night before. My dad's cooking something in the kitchen when I walk in, my uncle back on his laptop at the table, both of them looking up when the door closes behind me. Everything okay? My dad asks. Yeah, I say, which isn't entirely true, but isn't entirely a lie either. Just needed some air. I don't mention the men at the school gates yet, not because I'm hiding it, but because I want to think it through first. Figure out if it's actually connected to everything else, before I hand my uncle one more reason to lose sleep tonight. The evening passes slower than it should. My uncle keeps making quiet calls on the balcony. My dad keeps glancing at him every time he comes back inside, like he's trying to read something off his face that my uncle isn't saying out loud. I do homework I don't actually absorb, staring at the same page of a textbook for 20 minutes without turning it, my mind somewhere else entirely. Around 11, I finally give up pretending to study and head toward my room. That's when something outside catches my eye through the gap in the curtains. Headlights, parked, engine idling on the street below our building. I move closer to the window, careful not to make it obvious I'm looking. A black car, sleek, expensive looking in a way that doesn't match anything else parked on our block. Windows tinted dark enough that I can't make out anyone inside. It's just sitting there, engine running, exhaust curling faintly in the cold night air. Then I remember something that makes my stomach drop. I saw that exact car in almost that exact spot last night too. I brushed it off then, too overwhelmed by everything my uncle was telling me to think twice about a parked car outside our building. I don't have that excuse tonight. Same car, same spot. Second night in a row. I stand there at the window for a long moment, watching it, waiting to see if it moves, if a door opens, if anything happens that might explain it away as nothing. It doesn't move. It just sits there, patient, engine humming low in the dark, like whoever's inside has absolutely nowhere else they need to be. Whoever they're watching for, I have a very bad feeling I already know exactly who that is. I don't call out to my dad. I don't wake my uncle from wherever he finally passed out. I just stand there in the dark, staring down at a black car that has no business being parked outside our apartment for the second night running, and I understand, with a certainty that settles cold and heavy in my chest, that whatever my mother spent her whole life trying to keep buried has officially found its way to our front door.